Would you die for your beliefs? Imagine standing in a courtroom charged with nothing more than speaking your mind. The judges offer you a simple deal: stay silent or face death. Most of us would falter, maybe lie or beg to save our skin. But 2,400 years ago in ancient Athens, one man made a shocking choice. He chose death over silence. This isn't a myth or a movie plot. This actually happened, and it changed the course of history. That man's name was Socrates, and his story is one of the most dramatic showdowns in the history of ideas. In this video, we're diving deep into the suspenseful tale of Socrates' trial, a tale of courage, principle, and an unbelievable refusal to back down. Why should you care about some old philosopher's trial? Because it's more than ancient history. It's a lesson about integrity and free speech that still echoes today. If you've ever felt afraid to speak up for what's right, Socrates' story might just inspire you to stand your ground, no matter the cost. Now let's set the stage. Athens, 399 BC. The city is still licking its wounds from war and political turmoil. People are on edge, anxious about the future. Enter Socrates, a 70-year-old philosopher with a sharp tongue and a habit of questioning everything. For decades, he's been roaming the agora, the public marketplace, engaging anyone who'll listen in debates about virtue, truth, and justice. He's like that one guy who always asks why, no matter how obvious the answer seems. Young people love him. They hang on his every word, eager to challenge conventional wisdom. But many powerful Athenians, they're not so amused. To the authorities, Socrates is a troublemaker. He makes the city's leaders look foolish by exposing their ignorance. He's got no official position, no wealth, just his relentless questions. And it's enough to embarrass some of the most important men in Athens. Picture the scene: a respected general or a prominent politician reduced to stammering while Socrates politely dismantles his ego with logic. Yeah, that's not a way to win friends in high places. Over time, resentment against Socrates has been quietly brewing. Some accuse him of undermining the youth, teaching the kids to disrespect their elders and tradition. Others whisper that his questions about the gods are dangerous. Athens has just been through plague and defeat. The last thing they want is someone angering the gods or corrupting the next generation. So the trap is set. In 399 BC, Socrates is put on trial on two major charges: impiety, not believing in the official gods of the city and introducing strange new gods, and corrupting the youth of Athens. Essentially, they're saying, this guy is poisoning our young people's minds and disrespecting the divine. He's a threat to society. It sounds absurd, being tried for thinking differently, but Athens' democracy, proud as it is, has a fearful side. A few years earlier, the city went through a harsh dictatorship and a chaotic revolution. They're scared of anything or anyone that might destabilize their hard-won peace. And Socrates, with his constant questioning, looks like a dangerous spark in a powder keg. The trial of Socrates begins, and it's the talk of the town. Imagine a packed courtroom, actually an open-air space, with 501 jurors. Yes, 501 ordinary Athenian citizens gathered to decide the fate of this one old man. There are no lawyers like we have today. Socrates stands before them in his simple robe and will defend himself, by himself, against his accusers. The accusers, a trio of men led by Miletus, a poet, supported by Anytus, a powerful politician, and a speaker named Lycon, step forward to make their case. They get their turn to rail against Socrates for a couple of hours, painting him as an irreverent, corrupting force in the city. We don't have their exact speeches, but you can bet they used every trick in the book to stoke the jurors' anger and fear. They likely reminded everyone of Socrates' links to unpopular figures. Some of Socrates' former associates had become traitors during the recent oligarchy. Oops. They probably thundered that Socrates denies the gods. Socrates is misleading our children. To a lot of people, it rings true enough. Then comes Socrates' turn to speak, his defense. Now, if you were on trial for your life unjustly, what would you do? Maybe put on a humble face, plead for mercy, promise to change. That would be the sensible move, right? But Socrates is not your average defendant. This 70-year-old philosopher steps up in front of hundreds of jurors, many of whom already think he's guilty, and he does something unthinkable. He doubles down. Socrates speaks with the same calm, irritating confidence that got him in trouble in the first place. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't beg. Instead, he tells the jury that he has been doing Athens a favor all these years. He explains that far from corrupting anyone, he's been a gadfly, his own metaphor, stinging the lazy horse that is Athens, trying to wake the city up and make it better. He says the gods, through the oracle of Delphi, actually gave him a mission to question everyone, to find wisdom. He even cracks a few jokes at his accusers' expense, turning their arguments upside down. At one point, Socrates engages Miletus, the main accuser, in a rapid-fire Q&A and makes him look ridiculous, basically showing the charge of impiety doesn't even make sense if you examine it. Some jurors smirk, others frown. This old man isn't making it easy for them. Socrates then delivers a line that has echoed for millennia. Without quoting him directly, he essentially says, "If you offered to let me go on the condition that I shut up and never question things again, I would refuse, because life without seeking truth and wisdom, it's not worth living." Boom. Mic drop. Socrates straight up tells the court that if he can't live as a philosopher, he'd rather not live at all. It's a bold, even suicidal thing to say in front of the very people who hold his fate in their hands. But that's who Socrates is. He's fearless here, or at least utterly committed to his principles. Now the jurors sit there digesting this. Some might be thinking, is this guy for real? Did he just dare us to condemn him? The atmosphere is tense. Socrates has basically said he's not backing down, no matter what. It's a dark, suspenseful moment, the kind where you could hear a pin drop in that giant crowd. He ends his speech not by pleading, but by standing by his actions and warning the Athenians. If you kill me, you'll only be hurting yourselves, because I'm the best gadfly you've got. Talk about confidence. Finally, it's time for the verdict. The 501 jurors cast their votes, a small disc dropped into an urn for guilty or not guilty. Socrates stands awaiting their decision. Imagine your heart pounding in that silence. When the count is done, the result is announced. Guilty. Socrates has been convicted. Later accounts tell us it wasn't a landslide, roughly 280 to 221. A close call. If just 30 votes had flipped, he would have walked free. So there were plenty of people in that room who did believe Socrates, or at least didn't think he deserved death. But it wasn't enough. A slim majority feared this aging questioner more than they valued him. How does Socrates react? Not with tears or terror. He shrugs, almost indifferent, and remarks that he's not surprised. In fact, he's surprised the vote was so close. He expected worse. To him, this is all part of the plan. He's at peace with it. But the drama isn't over. In Athenian trials, they don't decide punishment until after the guilty verdict. First, the prosecution suggests a penalty, and they, of course, demand death. They want him gone. Then the defendant can counter with his own suggestion, something presumably lighter, to sway the jury for a lesser sentence. This is Socrates' last chance to save his life. All he has to do is say something reasonable. Exile, a fine, at least act sorry. And maybe, just maybe, enough jurors would opt for a softer punishment instead of execution. What does Socrates do? He smirks and says he deserves free meals for life. You heard that right. In one of the most defiant moments in legal history, Socrates sarcastically suggests that instead of punishing him, the city should reward him as a public benefactor, giving him free dinners at the Prytaneum, a hall reserved for Olympic champions and heroes. It's the ultimate cheeky comeback. Some people in the room must have gasped or laughed nervously. This was essentially a big middle finger to the court. Here is a man condemned, effectively telling his condemners, "I've been doing good for Athens. You should be thanking me, not killing me." After a beat, Socrates does offer a token alternative, a fine so small, 100 drachmas, about a few months' wages, that it sounds like a joke. He's basically giving the jury no real olive branch. Eventually, prodded by his friends present, he agrees to up the fine to a larger sum. His friends will pitch in to cover it. But it's too little, too late. The jury has heard his true feelings loud and clear. They have to choose between the prosecution's demand of death or Socrates' suggestion of a slap on the wrist, accompanied by his unbelievable arrogance, in their view. The room votes again, and the outcome this time is even more decisive. Death is the verdict, by an even bigger majority than the guilty vote. Socrates has effectively talked his way into a death sentence. It's a spine-chilling moment. Athens, this proud democracy, has just sentenced one of its own greatest minds to die, essentially for the crime of asking too many questions. Socrates' friends and students in the audience are devastated. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Yes, Socrates was confrontational, but execution? The old man himself stands calmly as the sentence is pronounced, death by poison. In Athens, they don't execute you by sword or hanging. They give you a cup of poisonous hemlock to drink, and you have to drink it yourself. A pretty cruel twist. It's like forcing the condemned to be complicit in their own death. However, the drama still isn't over. There's an interesting twist of fate. It so happens that right after the trial, Athens is celebrating a religious festival, a yearly mission to the island of Delos to honor Apollo. During this sacred period, the city's law forbids any executions. So Socrates is led away to prison, but he won't be killed yet. He ends up waiting in his cell for around 30 days, while the festival ship is on its journey. Talk about a psychological roller coaster. One moment you're sentenced to death, the next you're sitting in a cell with your execution postponed by a holy tradition. Each dawn, Socrates wakes up knowing, I'm supposed to be dead, but not until that ship comes back. It's like a morbid countdown clock with an uncertain alarm. During this month of delay, Socrates' friends and followers visit him regularly in jail. They don't waste the opportunity. They're frantically devising ways to save him, and it wouldn't even be that hard. Prison in those days isn't maximum security. His wealthy friends could bribe the guards easily. There's sympathy out there for Socrates. Many people would turn a blind eye if he just escaped into exile. In fact, most people expect him to do exactly that. Other condemned men have fled Athens to avoid execution. It's not uncommon. The authorities might grumble, but they wouldn't chase an old man down if he disappeared quietly. His friends whisper to him through the prison bars, "We've got a plan, Socrates. A boat waiting. We can smuggle you out to a safe place. You don't have to die. Please let us help you." This is the ultimate test of Socrates' principles. No cameras, no crowd, just a dim cell and a few loyal friends pleading for his life. He could escape and live out his years in peace somewhere far from Athens. All he has to do is say yes, and no one would blame him. He's a condemned man. The trial's over. But Socrates, being Socrates, he refuses. Time and again, he tells his friends no. He will not run. Why? Because in his mind, that would be wrong. This is the same man who told the jury he wouldn't stop philosophizing even to save his skin. Now he tells his companions that breaking the law to save himself would betray everything he's ever stood for. He has spent his life teaching about justice, virtue, and the importance of the law. If he were to escape, he'd be undermining those teachings, essentially proving that he never meant a word of it. Socrates believes that two wrongs don't make a right. Just because the city wronged him with an unjust verdict doesn't give him license to break the rules in return. His friends are frustrated and heartbroken. They argue, they beg, they present every pragmatic reason. Think of your children, Socrates. He had young kids. He was even a family man. Think of your students. You can continue teaching elsewhere. Don't throw your life away on a point of principle. But Socrates remains unshakable. To him, escaping would be the real shame. It would be like admitting guilt. And he believes the gods, or fate, must have their way. He's strangely at peace with the idea of dying for the truth. In one conversation, recorded later by Plato, Socrates even suggests that perhaps this is meant to be, and that death might not be a bad thing. He's more worried about the harm to his soul if he commits an injustice than about dying. Talk about conviction. This is a man who walks the walk. And so, the days pass. Socrates, instead of plotting a jailbreak, spends his final days conversing with friends about philosophy. Imagine that. You're on death row, and you're calmly discussing deep questions about the soul and the afterlife with your students. That's exactly what Socrates does. He turns his cell into a makeshift classroom, exploring ideas till his last sunset. Dark as the situation is, there's a strange peace in that prison. Some witnesses later wrote that Socrates seemed cheerful in those final days, as if he knew something others didn't. Then, the fateful day arrives. The sacred ship returns to Athens, its mission fulfilled. The festival is over, and that means the execution can finally take place. This is it. No more delays, no more appeals. The guards come to Socrates' cell, likely early in the morning or perhaps at sunset, depending on the account. Word spreads quickly among his followers, and a handful of his closest friends rush to the prison to be there with him at the end. The cell is grim and shadowy. The mood is heavy with sorrow and dread. Even the jailer, whose job it is to carry out the death sentence, looks uneasy, because Socrates isn't a violent criminal, he's a beloved teacher. Socrates' wife, Xanthippe, had been there earlier with their children. Overcome with grief, she had to be led away so that Socrates could face his end calmly. Now only the inner circle remains. Plato, Socrates' star pupil, then a young man, Crito, his old friend, and a few others gather around, their faces streaked with tears. They can't believe this is happening. The moment has come. The executioner, or prison officer, brings in a wooden cup filled with a murky liquid, the poison. This lethal potion is made from poison hemlock, a toxic plant concoction prepared specifically for state executions. The cup might be mixed with wine or some sweetener, but it's still a deadly dose of paralysis in a bowl. The officer, trying to keep composure, says something like, "Socrates, you know the drill. Please drink this. Then walk around until your legs feel heavy, then lie down. It will be quick." There's an awkward silence. Imagine handing a respected elder a cup of death. Even the executioner is having a hard time. Some accounts say the officer's hands were trembling. and that he regretted Socrates' fate deeply. Socrates takes the cup without fear. He doesn't quake or cry. In fact, he looks at the man and says, "Thank you." Yes, he thanks the executioner, perhaps to comfort him. By now, Socrates' friends are openly sobbing. One of them, Apollodorus, bursts into tears, crying, "O Socrates, how horrible to see you killed unjustly." Others cover their faces. It's gut-wrenching. Socrates, with the cup of poison literally in his hand, addresses them one last time. "Calm down, my friends," he says gently. "I told you I sent the women away for this very reason, so that we wouldn't have scenes of sorrow. Be strong." He doesn't want his final moments to be filled with weeping and despair. He's teaching even now, showing them and us how to face death with dignity. With that, Socrates raises the cup to his lips. Without hesitation, he drinks the poison, all of it. He didn't sip or waver. He downed the deadly drink as if it were a mere glass of wine at dinner. One of the friends covers his eyes. He can't watch. The room is deathly quiet, apart from muffled sobs. After drinking, Socrates casually remarks, perhaps with a bit of wry humor, that he should walk around as instructed. So he does. This 70-year-old man, moments from death, paces the cell, trying to help the poison do its work. Within minutes, the effects begin. Hemlock toxin is a nasty piece of work. It starts by numbing the extremities. Socrates soon feels a creeping coldness in his feet and toes. When the poisoner, the official, asks, Socrates says, "My feet are getting heavy." They help him lie down on his back. The numbness climbs his legs like an icy snake. His friends are gathered around him now, holding his hands, touching his now cold skin. In ancient executions by hemlock, the poison causes a paralysis that works upward through the body. You remain conscious almost until the end, as your body slowly shuts down. It's terrifying to imagine. Essentially, your muscles stop obeying, your breathing becomes labored, and you slowly suffocate in a calm paralysis. In this tense, dark moment, Socrates remains unbelievably calm. He's not thrashing or panicking. He's conversing up until he literally cannot speak. The poison reaches his waist. His breathing slows. His friends are crying softly, some praying, others just watching in numb disbelief. Perhaps there's a glimmer of fear in Socrates' eyes as the unknown approaches, but he masterfully hides it. To him, this is the final teaching moment. No fear. As the numbness creeps over his chest, Socrates' time is almost up. His eyes begin to dim. Before his voice fails, Socrates has one final thing to say. In a barely audible whisper, he tells Crito, his closest friend, "We owe a rooster to Asclepius. Please don't forget to pay that debt." It's a strange last line, isn't it? Asclepius is the god of healing, and people would sacrifice a rooster to thank the god for curing an illness. Socrates likened death to a healing of the soul, as if by dying he is being cured of the hardships of life. Even in his final seconds, the man delivers a nugget of wisdom wrapped in a quirky request. Crito chokes up and replies, "Don't worry, we will." Those are the last recorded words of Socrates. A moment later, Socrates goes silent. His eyes close. He stops breathing. The greatest thinker in Athens, one of the greatest of all time, is gone. The executioner, or, according to one account, Crito himself, gently closes Socrates' eyes and mouth. His friends burst into tears, now freely. There is no holding back the grief. Even the officer is said to have turned away in sorrow. Socrates' final act is complete. He met death on his own terms, undefeated in spirit. The news of Socrates' death spreads through Athens. Some are shocked, some indifferent, some perhaps satisfied. But in the wake of this dark event, A realization slowly dawns on the city. They didn't silence Socrates at all. In fact, they made him immortal. Killing Socrates only amplified his voice. His student Plato, who was utterly heartbroken, would go on to write down Socrates' teachings and the story of that final day in a series of now famous dialogues, like the Apology and Phaedo, ensuring that the world would hear Socrates' side of the story loud and clear. Athens, the city that condemned him, would eventually become known not for silencing a rebel, but for birthing one of history's greatest champions of truth. In the aftermath, many Athenians actually began to question whether they'd done the right thing. Over the years, Socrates' martyrdom left an uncomfortable stain on Athens' reputation. Later legends even claim that Athens repented. Allegedly, they exiled Meletus, the lead accuser, and honored Socrates as a moral hero. We don't know for sure if that's true, but one thing is certain: Socrates' legacy only grew after his death. He had stood up for freedom of thought and paid the ultimate price, and that struck a chord that rings through history. So what are the key takeaways from this dramatic tale? Socrates taught us through his actions that integrity matters more than life or death. He showed that sticking to what you believe, even when the whole world is against you, is the highest form of courage. This was a man who literally faced down a death sentence with a smile because he refused to live a life of lies. It's an extreme example, sure, but it's inspiring. It makes you ask yourself, would I have the guts to do that? Would I stand firm for truth even if everything I love was on the line? Thankfully, most of us will never have to make a choice as brutal as Socrates's. But in our everyday lives, we face smaller trials of integrity, moments where speaking up might cost us popularity, or where doing the right thing isn't easy. In those moments, remember old Socrates in his cell, unflinching. His spirit can guide anyone who values truth and knowledge. The trial of Socrates is more than just an ancient story. It's a warning and a motivation. It warns us what can happen when fear and ignorance rule a society. Even a democracy can commit terrible injustice when it panics, and it motivates us by showing the power one person's courage can have. Socrates' ideas survived because they were true and powerful, and no court verdict could ever extinguish that. In the end, Socrates, the philosopher who chose death over silence, achieved a kind of victory. Athens killed his body, but they amplified his voice for eternity. His teachings went on to influence his student Plato, Plato's student Aristotle, and essentially the entire foundation of Western philosophy. Not bad for a criminal sentenced to death, huh? Now, if this story gave you goosebumps or made you think differently about speaking up, then do something brave today. Use your voice for good. And while you're at it, let's keep Socrates' spirit alive. Like this video if his story inspired you. Leave a comment about what you think. Would you have dared to do what Socrates did? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one. And subscribe to the channel for more epic and thought-provoking stories from history. We have plenty of tales that will shock, amaze, and inspire you to see the world in a new light. Thank you for watching till the end. Remember to stay curious, question everything. Socrates would approve, and never let fear silence you. Stay tuned for the next video, because we're just getting started on these incredible journeys through time. Until next time, stay brave and keep seeking the truth.